Hello everyone, thank you and welcome to our Imposter Syndrome program. There is an imposter among us, however, you are not the imposter. And so, oops, there we go. To start off, my name is Trish. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a third year psychological science major as well as the wellness coordinator at the CrossCultural Center. And down below, I've included my email in case anyone wants to contact me afterwards for any questions. And now I'll be introducing our guest speaker, or letting her introduce herself.
No worries. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Andrea. I use she, ella pronouns, and I'm the Interim Associate Director at the Center for Student Leadership. I've also included my email if anyone ever wants to get in touch. And I'm also a proud UCI alum.
And so just before we begin, I wanted to talk a little about the CrossCultural Center because this is where I work at. The CrossCultural Center is an organization on campus founded with the mission to be a space for students to imagine and inspire an equitable and socially just campus, to affirm and develop intersectional cultural identities and build a more inclusive community. We have many programs that we hold throughout the quarters, some of which you may have heard of, such as Lunch and Learn, Real Talk, and many more, all of which you can usually find information on through our newsletter. I've included a QR code here in case you want to subscribe to it. And also our website right here, which I've plugged down below. Some of our signature events include the Community Roots Festival, which we had last fall quarter, the MLK Symposium, which we had last month, and the Deconstruction Zone, which we will be having next spring quarter.
And so hi everyone again. So I'm coming from the Center for Student Leadership. And so some of the programs we're mostly known for is SPOT, which is our student parent orientation program, which is the orientation where everyone comes on in. And we're also known for the Admin Intern program, Ant Leader Spotlight, and leadership classes and workshops, just like the one you're attending right now. And our goal at the Center for Student Leadership is to help students feel comfortable and confident at UCI in developing their leadership skills, because we believe once students feel confident and comfortable in themselves, they'll be able to contribute to the UCI community and beyond. And essentially something I really like to share with this is at the Center for Student Leadership, we believe that each student is already a leader. Each of you come to campus with experiences and stories and values and skills that matter, right? So our goal at the Center for Student Leadership is to help you all embrace that, discover that, and then grow it. And so something I also like to highlight is we're the center for student leadership, not the center of student leadership. So all of our programs and services, we always want to center the service of students, right? Like students are the leaders. We're just the pro staff making sure there's opportunities and positions for you all to grow. And we love collaborating across campus because we're not just the one-stop shop for leadership. Leadership is at campus orgs, volunteer programs, CrossCultural Center, social ecology. So we just want to help students gain that exposure to grow as leaders across campus. Alrighty, so thank you all so much again for attending. Our learning goals are, number 1, understanding imposter syndrome. Number 2, reframing our perspective of imposter syndrome. 3, you all are going to learn some strategies to help you overcome imposter syndrome. And then 4, we're actually going to be doing some fun practice and prevention work so that we can prevent it from ever entering our headspace again. So this is what we'll be doing together. All right, so I always enjoy starting off our workshops, starting on the same foundation. So we're gonna be showing a video from TED Ed, which is what is imposter syndrome and how can we combat it? So I believe Trish is gonna help us watch this and we'll do a little discussion after that.
Can everyone hear the sound?
Even after writing 11 books and winning several prestigious awards, Maya Angelou couldn't escape the nagging doubt that she hadn't really earned her accomplishments. Albert Einstein experienced something similar. He described himself as an involuntary swindler whose work didn't deserve as much attention as it had received. Accomplishments at the level of Angelou's or Einstein's are rare, but their feeling of fraudulence is extremely common. Why can't so many of us shake feelings that we haven't earned our accomplishments, or that our ideas and skills aren't worthy of others' attention? Psychologist Pauline Rose Clance was the first to study this unwarranted sense of insecurity. In her work as a therapist, she noticed many of her undergraduate patients shared a concern. Though they had high grades, they didn't believe they deserved their spots at the university. Some even believed their acceptance had been an admissions error. While Clance knew these fears were unfounded, she could also remember feeling the exact same way in graduate school. She and her patients experienced something that goes by a number of names: imposter phenomenon, imposter experience, and imposter syndrome. Together with colleague Suzanne Imes, Clance first studied imposterism in female college students and faculty. Their work established pervasive feelings of fraudulence in this group. Since that first study, the same thing has been established across gender, race, age, and a huge range of occupations, though it may be more prevalent and disproportionately affect the experiences of underrepresented or disadvantaged groups. To call it a syndrome is to downplay how universal it is. It's not a disease or an abnormality, and it isn't necessarily tied to depression, anxiety, or self-esteem. Where do these feelings of fraudulence come from? People who are highly skilled or accomplished tend to think others are just as skilled. This can spiral into feelings that they don't deserve accolades and opportunities over other people. And as Angelou and Einstein experienced, there's often no threshold of accomplishment that puts these feelings to rest. Feelings of imposterism aren't restricted to highly skilled individuals either. Everyone is susceptible to a phenomenon known as pluralistic ignorance, where we each doubt ourselves privately, but believe we're alone in thinking that way because no one else voices their doubts. Since it's tough to really know how hard our peers work, how difficult they find certain tasks, or how much they doubt themselves, there's no easy way to dismiss feelings that we're less capable than the people around us. Intense feelings of imposterism can prevent people from sharing their great ideas or applying for jobs and programs where they'd excel. At least so far, the most surefire way to combat imposter syndrome is to talk about it. Many people suffering from imposter syndrome are afraid that if they ask about their performance, their fears will be confirmed. And even when they receive positive feedback, it often fails to ease feelings of fraudulence. But on the other hand, hearing that an advisor or mentor has experienced feelings of imposterism can help relieve those feelings. The same goes for peers. Even simply finding out there's a term for these feelings can be an incredible relief. Once you're aware of the phenomenon, you can combat your own imposter syndrome by collecting and revisiting positive feedback. One scientist who kept blaming herself for problems in her lab started to document the causes every time something went wrong. Eventually, she realized most of the problems came from equipment failure and came to recognize her own competence. We may never be able to banish these feelings entirely, but we can have open conversations about academic or professional challenges. With increasing awareness of how common these experiences are, perhaps we can feel freer to be frank about our feelings and build confidence in some simple truths. You have talent, you are capable, and you belong. Everyone can use a little extra kick of confidence sometimes. Find out some tips and tricks for boosting yours with
Andrea, I think you're muted.
My muted. My bad, everybody. Thank you, Trish. Thank you all so much for watching that video. My heart always gets a little like soft at the end where it's like, you belong and you matter. Oh, yes, we do. So I hope you all enjoyed watching that video. Next up, we're going to go into a little discussion as a small group. We're going to discuss. I love Among Us, such a fun game. So I want to open the floor to you all to reflect a little bit, thinking about what resonated with you with the video, what stood out to you, or is there anything that you're like, oh, I felt this way before? So we can take a minute to reflect on the video and then we can share out loud. Did any thoughts come up for anyone?
For me, I really like the part where they said, we're all like thinking it like in our head, but we don't feel like other people are thinking it as well. So we think we're like alone in thinking all these thoughts, but
Right.
really like everyone is thinking it, but we're just like, we just think we're alone. So I think that was like very comforting to me, especially. And I like just really like that message because sometimes like you do have these thoughts that you're not like good enough or that um you're not doing as well, but like just to know that like other people are like thinking the same thing and like just like overall like I really like the end part where it like kind of explain like why people think these things and then um just how we can kind of like kind of dispel these thoughts a little bit like by like sharing our own feelings and thoughts with others. I think that was really like comforting to like know that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, the video was sharing how imposter syndrome can be felt everywhere in all these different populations and fields. And even though we understand and know that, it's a very individual experience. And I think imposter syndrome teaches us to keep it inside when actually it should be the opposite. We share, we make connections, and through our vulnerability, we can grow even better together, right? So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Any other thoughts from the group?
Hi, I'll share. Thank you for letting me be here. I know I'm not a student, but I think what was interesting is it also said that sometimes there's no level of accomplishment that would, kind of settle those feelings of being an imposter. And I think that's very true and hard to kind of wrap your mind around, that you might constantly feel this way, that you're an imposter. I think I especially feel it, and it's settled a little bit, but I'm in an MBA program and I didn't get an undergrad degree in business or anything like that. So to go into a master's program that is totally different than what I got my undergrad degree in is challenging, and constantly does make me feel like I'm not supposed to be there. I don't know as much as my other colleagues and classmates that either got a business background or work heavily in business, right? And I work in education. And so there's a lot of, feelings of like, oh, people are better at this than I am.
Well, Selena, thanks for sharing. And a part of your story, I really, really appreciate that. And I think that's so brave of you. Like, you're pursuing something you want to do and you got in for a reason, right? And but what you're saying, like all the accomplishments you could have, and maybe at the end of the day still feel like you don't belong or you shouldn't be there. But there's a reason why you're there, and you are succeeding. You're gonna graduate soon. You worked very hard. Yes, you're gonna make it. So yeah, I think it's interesting how these external factors give us these like signs or cues that we should feel like we don't belong. But in reality, it's like you applied, you got in, you're getting these good grades, you're getting that degree, right? So thank you so much for sharing a personal story. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts before we move forward? Okay, thank you.
And then just real quick before I forget, I'm gonna drop an attendance sheet in the chat. If everyone could just sign it real quick. At the end, we're gonna do like the opportunity drawing for a giveaway. So it's gonna be picked based on the attendance sheet. Thank you.
Yay, awesome. Thank you, Trish. So some of the things we may have felt with imposter syndrome. What am I even doing here? So that's an example of invalidating yourself, right? Like, what am I doing here? Do I belong here? Those are imposter thoughts of invalidating yourself. Another thought that we could have experienced is, can I actually do this? Right? Maybe you get this job, or you get into a grad program, or you're given a project and you're like, can I actually do this? Why do they give this to me? Right? So that's an example of invalidating not only your own work and your work ethic and capabilities, but it's also invalidating your potential to grow, right? So I think that's something really important to think about. And then another thought that might commonly come across our mind is, what if I fail everyone, right? Sometimes we put this huge pressure on ourselves. And that's an example of invalidating not only yourself, but you're actually also invalidating and rejecting your supporters, right? You have community, you have coworkers, a supervisor, peers, and family who are cheering you on and supporting you in some shape or form. And so when you're thinking the thought, what if I fail everyone? You're kind of wrapping yourself and your community into that imposter syndrome bubble. So these are just some other examples of how imposter syndrome can show up in our lives. Thank you, Trish. So one way to combat imposter syndrome is to practice this reframe, right? So I'm going to give you 3 reframes of imposter syndrome that might help you just dispel what is going on. So number 1, the feelings of imposter syndrome are actually not yours. They are actually not coming from you. So please don't blame yourself. Your feelings are valid, right? Your emotions, that's real, but they are not about you. Usually our imposter feelings is coming from our environment or giving us a little orange flag about what our needs are, right? So the feelings are real. There's something missing or lacking, but guess what? It's not you. It's actually your environment or something going on externally. It's really easy for us to claim these feelings as our own, like it's our fault or we did something wrong. But actually, imposter syndrome is a reflection of the outside, not who you are on the inside. The second reframe to remember is we live in a society that thrives off of capitalism, right? So I just want to name that as well. So specifically in the United States, the narrative is we are the result of what we produce. The system isn't built to care about people or humans, right? It's about like employee does A, we get B, and then we get C, and we make all this money, right? So it's like production focused when really humans, we're relational and leadership is relational and it's about community. And so imposter syndrome itself is a product of capitalism, right? So imposter syndrome even exists because we're living in a world and in a system that tells us that we are what we produce, not actually who we are. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, awesome. And then the third reframe to think about is reflecting and asking yourself a few questions, right? So be curious about your imposter feelings. What is new or different about my environment? What are my needs that are yet to be met? How can I get support? Right? So instead of quickly, I think we're taught again quickly to like attach ourselves to our feelings of like imposter syndrome, but take a moment and think, what is new or different around me? Do I have all my needs? Do I have everything I need to succeed or to do well? And then how can I get support? Thank you. And so you're like, cool, great thoughts, but how do I do that? Here we go. So the reframe in action. So sharing your needs. It's so important to communicate your thoughts, what your needs are. It would be quite cool if we lived in a world where we could read each other's mind and everything would be always known, but life doesn't work that way. And so we have to communicate and be vulnerable, take initiative to share what's going on or what we need. So there is always, and think about this, especially in a work context setting or even in school, is there's always someone whose literal job is to support you, right? You have supervisors, you have professors, you have teaching assistants and teachers. So usually in your environment, there's someone who's there to guide you. And so maybe, and I know that depends on like what kind of relationship you have with your supervisor, with those around you, but there's always some sort of system of support you can tap into. And so it's good to lean in on that and to explore it. And another thing to think about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I don't know if there's any psych majors out there, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs is basically this pyramid that shows foundationally what do humans need: shelter and food. After that, it's like work, or not work, love and support. And then we get to our highest self, right? Self-actualization. And so thinking about sometimes our imposter feelings might be coming from like, maybe we stayed up all night and now we're feeling terrible at work the next day, right? Or sometimes we skip meals. Our bodies need that, and that's not a good practice to do at all. So sharing what you need, like, oh, hey, I I do need to get food first before presenting, right? Or, hey, I need to finish this meeting early so I can get full rest before the retreat happens, right? So whatever you need, it's important to communicate that. Second, another action you can do that is helpful is asking questions. So you are learning a new role, or you're learning about a new space, a task, environment. It's important to shift your feelings to a growth mindset. Of course, you don't know everything because you're new, or you're learning, or this is a new experience for you. So thinking about, hey, I'm in a space of growing and I'm supposed to ask questions because you're learning. And again, I think the problem around the capitalistic society we're growing up in is there's kind of this feeling like you always have to be right, or you can't. Asking questions shows weakness, which I'm like, no, it really doesn't. Asking questions shows accountability. It shows a sense of responsibility and that you care and are committed to what you have joined, right? So asking questions could be a really, really great way to skip those imposter syndrome feelings and gaps, because then you have information and you're feeling informed. And when you're informed and have knowledge, that's really empowering for yourself. Third, but not least, is initiate preparedness. Ask yourself what you need to feel prepared before your first day of school, before your first day on the job, right? So what do you need to feel ready to go? So for example, I was that kid in school that had my backpack ready, my homework's inside, everything's by the door, so I can just run out and grab it. And I would feel better knowing the night before I could go to sleep knowing everything I need is so that's just one example, right? And maybe it's doing research before an interview, right? Like learning about the mission and vision and values. Or maybe before your first day of work, you pull out your power outfit. What's the outfit that's going to make you feel epic and awesome and ready to go? And it's something else to think about is ask for what you need to feel prepared, right? So maybe asking folks, oh, what should I do before my first day on the job? Is there anything I could expect? Because again, information is empowering. So asking for and doing what you need to get support and then to feel prepared from what you learned is really, really important. Thank you. So here are some quick strategies that I have found helpful, and I think other students across campus have found helpful as well. Is number one, this is my personal favorite, is the pick-me-ups folder. So this pick-me-ups folder is the idea of collecting words of affirmations, anything that makes you smile, and putting it somewhere. This could be like a physical jar with Post-it notes. For me, it's an email. So I have a special folder in my work email that's called Pick-me-ups, and anytime someone says thank you, or like, oh, Andrea, that was a great workshop, or anything, I like put it all in there. And so when I have a rough day at work, or I'm just feeling a little not motivated, I'm like, oh yeah, and I open up that Pick-me-ups folder and I just feel so much better. Like, yes, I'm called to be here. I want to be here. My work is valued. I do belong. I am needed, right? So having some sort of affirmation within your work life and like even friendship life, family life is really, really important and can help you in dismantling any sort of imposter feelings you have, right? Then this has helped me growing up very, very much is the 2-to-1 ratio concept. So for one negative thing you think and say to yourself, immediately say 2 good things about yourself. I know this might sound a little silly, but it's psychology and it totally works. And it's so, so, so meaningful and special to hear your own voice and affirming yourself, right? That's like really, really incredible. And so, oh, let's see, Pauline shared a note. Let's see. I started doing the pick-me-ups folder after your AIP workshop, Andrea, and it's so helpful. Oh, Pauline, I'm so glad. That's so great, right? And it starts small, but eventually that folder is going to become 30 messages, 100 messages, who knows? So I'm really glad you've been practicing that strategy, Pauline. That's really, really great. Thank you for sharing. And so one example of the 2-to-1 ratio is sometimes I still do this to this day and I'm working on it. Whenever I make a mistake, I like immediately beat myself up. I'm like, Andrea, you're so stupid. Or like, Andrea, why did you do that? And then I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. This is the first time I'm doing this task. It's okay that I messed up because I never done it before. I'm going to ask for help or ask for tips in the future if I'm doing something new for the first time, right? So why did I already belittle myself, right? That's like my own self-talk. I'm like, oh, Andrea, you gotta like fix this up, right? And it's something I've been improving on for a long, long time and have gotten better at. And I've gotten better at it because I've been practicing the 2-to-1 ratio. So let's say, example, Andrea, I can't believe you messed that up. I'm like, wait a minute. This is the first time I'm using this particular software and no one else has done this before, so I'm trying to figure it out alone. Or, oh, I've never done this before and now I know I should ask some more questions before I do the next project, right? Or it's like, here's another example. It's like, oh, maybe I'm not the best at this, but I'm going to be really good at presenting it later when I share my findings, right? So just understanding we have different strengths and talents in different areas, and that's totally okay. So 2-to-1 ratio can be very helpful. You can say it to yourself in the mirror or even in real time. If it comes out, I always immediately just like, oh yeah, I'm good at this and this, or I can do this and this. It's really good practice and people might be like, huh, that's interesting, but it's actually really great to share and role model with others. Last but not least, and I think it's very, very important, and this takes a lot of self-reflection, is getting to the root cause of your imposter feeling. So going from, again, the example of, I suck at this, to, this task is making me anxious because X, Y, and Z, right? So again, I'm terrible at this. Wait a minute. I'm not terrible at it. It's making me anxious or it's making me nervous because I don't really know what standard I need to follow. There's not enough structure for me to feel confident to pursue it well. And 3, maybe the person who was supposed to explain it to you was out that day. So now let's think of some action steps. Oh, I'm going to make another meeting with this person. Oh, I'm going to ask some questions, right? And again, see like reframing that feeling from you taking personal ownership of your imposter syndrome to realizing, wait a minute, take a step back. It's a feeling, but where is that feeling coming from? I think that's really important to practice and be really helpful when we're combating these imposter feelings. So speaking of words of affirmation and pick-me-ups, Trish is going to lead us into a really great activity.
Okay, so with this activity, we'll be folding origami. And so here I have 2 options. One is folding hearts and the other is folding stars. And for the sake of like simplicity and time, I'll be using the heart as a demonstration because this activity is going to be about self-love, and what better way to show it than through a heart. And so I have included the links for both though, just in case like you prefer to do stars instead. I'll be instructing based on the pictures, but these links and QR code will take you to a more detailed instructions if you need it. And so for this activity, you'll be needing a square piece of paper. It can be any size you want, but I recommend a 3-inch by 3-inch paper. You can cut this out from printed paper, or if you have, I really recommend like sticky notes because this works pretty perfectly for this activity. If you have multiple colors too, like that works great too. You'll also need a pen or pencil to write with, and also just to be ready to write lots of positive affirmation messages to yourself. And I will give everyone a quick minute to just gather these supplies. Yeah. Okay. Does everyone have them now? Yeah? Okay. All right. And so with this activity, let's grab it real quick. On the inside of the paper, on basically the sticky side, I want you to write basically one of the following messages. It can be a positive affirmation to yourself. It could be a good message your peers have told you. It could be what your needs are. And basically you can refer back to the strategies we just learned. So basically anything for the pick-me-up folder, to the 1 ratio, or getting to the root cause of your feelings to help you overcome, getting to the root cause of your feelings to help you come up with what you want to say. This is very open-ended and entirely up to you to come up with what you want to write. But the main goal is that the message is supposed to help you, remind you that you are not an imposter. And the reason why I mentioned it'd be nice to have multiple colors is that you can even do multiple messages for multiple topics and categorize them. So you can have some dedicated to academics, to your work, or even when you're just feeling down and need affirmation. The objective of this activity is that for you to make multiple of these cards so you can refer back to them in the future and just open them up when you just want something to read like a positive message about, and basically to help you not feel like an imposter. And I will be giving everyone just a minute to think of like what they want to say to themselves. Okay. Is everyone ready? Okay. And so taking your sticky note, what you're gonna do is basically you're gonna fold it in half, kind of like a triangle with the message on the inside. And then once you have your triangle, you're gonna unfold it. Now you'll have a crease in the middle. Now you take basically from that crease, take the top and fold it in half again to make a triangle on the other side. And then unfold it so that you have an X basically in a square. Okay, and so taking the top corner, you're gonna fold it down to the center. And then using the bottom corner, you're gonna fold it all the way to the top. And then, is everyone there? Yes, okay. And then you're gonna take both the bottom edges and then fold it to the center, kind of like folding an airplane. So it just be, yeah, just take the right edge, fold it to the center, take the left edge, fold it to the center. And then with all like the top corners and the side corners, just bend it back. And then you have a heart.
That's awesome. Can you show me?
I'm sorry?
Can you show me the way you curl to the top and the sides? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so it's basically you just bend it back. So you just kind of pinch it backwards. So on this side, it's gonna look a little pinched up, but on the other side, it'll look like a heart. Okay, so if everyone has the gist of it, I will let you all have 5 minutes to fold more of these hearts. And then afterwards, we'll have a group share if anyone is comfortable sharing what they wrote. And I will also be playing music too.
That's so cool. I was gonna ask like what the speaker is for.
Oops, sorry. What are you saying?
Oh no, I was just saying I was wondering what the speaker button was for. So that's cool you like had that into the slide. But that's it.
unless anyone wants more time. Okay, and so now to the group share. So yeah, if anyone is comfortable sharing what they wrote.
I can share. Yeah, so I made a couple hearts, but mainly it's like they're just different affirmations for myself because I tend to like down talk myself or talk down to myself when it comes to feeling like not good enough or not qualified enough or various things, whether it be like school or work or like my internship. So those all of them kind of like applied to those, like all of them, or it's applicable to all those areas of my life. And for example, one of them I wrote that it's okay to make oopsies, or it's okay to feel like you don't know what you're doing, because then that just means you can reach out for help and support, and that you deserve that support. So it's not like all internally my fault um if I have a bump in the road. It just means that I could just reach out and ask for help. So that's like one of the things that I put to remind myself to not always put the blame on my individual internal self. So yeah, that's what I did for my little hearts.
Thank you.
So for me, I made these little tiny hearts. Oh my god. I made like two, and then one was about like, I feel like lately I feel like I've been kind of annoying in the like spaces I'm in. So like I just like remind myself that like I'm like not like people like care about me, and then they like want me to be there, and I'm like not like a burden, basically. And the other one was about like how like, because sometimes I feel like I'm not qualified, or like I'm just like lagging behind like everyone else. Like I just want to remind myself that like everyone has their own pace, and like it's okay to like um just like go at your own speed.
Thank you for sharing. I can also share what I wrote too. What I wrote, I have two hearts. Well, for one of them, I wrote that I am enough, because even though it's a simple message, it's something I find that I need to tell myself more often. Because as someone who's always been a very like achiever, goal oriented person, I'm always worried that I don't have the abilities to like meet expectation. Like even for this program that's like on imposter syndrome itself, this whole week leading up to it, I was feeling like an imposter myself, like wondering if I could actually do it, if I could do it well, and if I was going to disappoint others if I couldn't. But I was able to like reframe that thinking and affirm myself that I've already put in my best efforts, and that it is within my capacity. So that in itself is enough, and that I am enough. Okay, and then so if anyone else doesn't want to share anything else, we'll be moving on to the next section. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Trish, for facilitating this awesome little affirmation activity. I really enjoyed hearing from it. And Trish, thank you for sharing about how you felt about this program, like leading up. And you are so capable, you are so incredible, and you're in this role for a reason. And we are collaborating for a great reason. It's because you want to provide a great service to your students, right? So this is all you. And she made this PowerPoint look awesome, like imposter Among Us theme. So that's all her. So shout out to Trish. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, you're so welcome. And so let's learn about some preventative measures, right? So there's ways to prevent imposter syndrome. It shouldn't be something that we just assume we'll always have or always carry. So one way we can prevent these feelings and having these feelings take over like how we feel at work or in school and our roles is to have some mentorship, right? So mentorship is any sort of connection between you and someone else where you feel supported, you can be yourself and share really what's on your mind. This could be a supervisor, this could be a mentor from maybe another time in your life, like high school or in a religious setting or like family members as well. And something really important too that I want to highlight for college students is there's so much power within peer-to-peer relationships, right? Like when students come together, that is when the magic really happens. And so I want you all to know that there's so much empowerment within you all and within each other as students. Sometimes we think about mentorship always has to be this like, someone's older and I'm the younger one, or I'm the old one and they're the young one. It's actually more about a connection where you can create an authentic space together to be transparent and be yourself and let different thoughts out. And when you have those kind of relationships, that mentorship kind of style relationship, then you can be honest about these new feelings you have or the imposter syndrome that's like invading your head before a big project that goes on, right? So relationships can be really helpful because they remind you who you are, what you're capable of, what you were there to do. So, and it's hard to hold these feelings alone, right? Like just like in the video, when you share your imposter syndrome feelings, everyone lightens, right? Like everyone gets a little bit less of it. There's this Irish proverb that says, shared joy is double the joy and shared sorrow is half the sorrow, right? So always think about that sometimes when there's a lot in my heart. I'm like, it's good to share because it's gonna dissipate and people might be feeling the same way. And usually they are, right? Especially in the context of imposter syndrome. Another action of prevention against imposter syndrome is to ask early on. So don't let these feelings sit for too long. Turn them into questions, turn those feelings into support and reflection, right? So the moment you get any inkling of like, can I really do this? That should be the first signal of, hey, I need to be asking questions right now. Or, this is an interesting feeling. Where is it coming from, right? So ask early on in the journey. Again, society teaches us to be silent, to not share. But no, it is important to share because if we let that brew too long, then the imposter syndrome feelings we think are real. We think it is our fault or that we're not good enough. And that is never, ever the case. So ask early on about how you're feeling and be curious again about where those feelings are coming from. Meet them with curiosity and grace rather than like belittlement or shame or embarrassment. Something else that's also really important too is debriefing with those you trust. So reflect often, gain new perspectives from others, ask for feedback. How can I do this better? Or what was your experience with this project or in this role? And of course, you have your friends and family and even potentially a therapist if that's something you would like to do, is having like a debriefing space of like, like asking for real feedback is important. You gain confidence, you learn strategically and exactly what could be improved upon, right? So again, we can't always be living in this unknown because then sometimes when we're navigating the unknown and we don't know what's going on, then it's very easy for us to feed our imposter syndrome, right? But again, information and knowledge is empowering. So debriefing with those you trust is important after like a big program or a role or going through school, building those friendships where you can have those honest conversations. Awesome. Well, yeah, Trish, you can close us out. I'd love that. Go for it. Oh, I think you're muted, Trish. It's okay.
There we go. Okay. Sorry, there was a little technical difficulty there. But so this concludes the presentation. I want to give a big thanks to Andrea for being here. Like, I appreciate you so much. Your presentation, as always, is just so amazing and just inspiring in so many ways. And I know like so many folks feel the same way too. Do you have any last words you want to say?
Well, thank you all so much for having me. Thank you all for being courageous to share your experiences. I do want to point out this little comic that I like posting up here it's like a little sun hanging out with a rain cloud. It's like, hey, what you up to? Nothing much. I'm just being myself. And then the sun's like, I'll join you. And then something beautiful happens, right? Like a rainbow is formed when the sun and the rain come together. So it's just a reminder that just come as you are. You're always enough. You are so valued and you'll always belong. Thank you so much for being here and having me.
Thank you. And then also thank you everyone who came here today too. Y'all are so amazing. Before I end this, I've also included a link and QR code to our evaluation form. If folks could fill this out, it would definitely be very appreciated, as the CrossCultural Center is always looking for ways to improve and better deliver our programs. Please also fill out the attendance sheets if you haven't yet, because as I said before, we're going to do a little giveaway that will send out more information later. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for coming. I'll be sticking around for a few more minutes in case anyone has any questions. And that's it. Thank you. You are great, you are worthy, and you belong. And also stop the recording too.